Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Jeff, and today we're going to be reviewing Heretical Fishing. Now, if I'm going to review a book, it usually means that I like the book enough to recommend it. I don't really want to be reviewing books that I hate. That's not really what I'm doing with this channel. However, occasionally there'll be some that it's like more famous or something you see a ton of. Heretical Fishing does kind of fit into the camp of it was a book I saw a ton of. It kept popping up for me, and so I did finally read it. And this does fit in the realm of I do recommend it. So if that's all you want to hear, move on and you guys can go get the book if you want it. But I'm going to dive into a little bit more. I won't go into any spoilers. This is just simply, I created a new kind of metric for measuring how good a book is in its initial presentation. And so I'm going to go through a couple of criteria that I've set up: the concept, the world building, the hook and the draw of the book, the characters themselves, and then any hangups I would say I have for not at least trying the book. And all of those are not based off of how good the book is ultimately, like if I was judging it versus a different book that everyone knows. That's not the plan. The entire idea of this video is to give you guys the information for whether or not it's something that is worthwhile for you to be giving a check, checking it out. And that's what I really like. I don't like giving spoilers. I've never liked reviews from others that are giving spoilers. And so we're not going to get into that. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into the review or the recommendation criteria for Heretical Fishing: a cozy guide to knowing cults, outsmarting the fish, and alienating oneself. This is written by Haylock Jobson, which I saw a whole thing about how his name is not Haylock, but when his mom named him Paige, he had to take some creative liberty with that. And the narrator for the audiobook is Heath Miller. I am a huge fan of Heath Miller, and I'll get a little bit more into my thoughts on Heath Miller on this book later on. But let's go ahead and dive into the concept of Heretical Fishing. First off, it's a billionaire golden child that was given the family business after his father dies, and kind of just decides after a while that that's not the life he wants. And he goes on this journey of trying to discover who he is, and it starts off with him just showing up fishing and news crews coming and trying to see who he is. And along the way he gets isekai'd, so he dies and goes to a different world. That's chapter 1, so that's nothing that's spoilery with that one. And kind of decides, okay, I'm in a new world where I don't have the fame of my family. I don't have that billionaire business, history here. It's just whatever I want to do. And as you can tell from this, the title of the book, it's fishing. And that's kind of the main thing he wants to do, is he wants to go fishing. And the only problem is that the people in the new world view fishing as a heretical act. And overall, with the concept of this book, it fits very well into the slice of life style. I would actually compare this one to Beware of Chicken. If you've read that one, it's one of my favorite books, mixed with the character Jason Asano from He Who Fights with Monsters. I feel like if you took Jason Asano and put it into a similar type of place as Beware of Chicken, it basically gives you an idea of what this book is. And anyone that has read those books knows that that's a pretty good recommendation. It's a pretty good place to start at. So diving into the world building here, this is kind of an interesting one for this book, because I feel like the true world building, the magic systems and the lit RPG aspects of this book are not actually shown very much to the reader even, and definitely not really shown to the character himself. And so everything is done behind the scenes. You do get a little bit of dramatic irony by being able to see more of that than the main character. But a lot of it is lit RPG that doesn't feel like lit RPG a lot. It's all done behind the scenes, which I feel like is done very well. And it does come into the aspect later on, like more in the second book. But that just I feel like that actually was a really fun aspect of this, was that the world building itself wasn't done. It's left as a promise for later. And I'm not sure how much later. Book 3 comes out November 12th. And so I'm excited. That's something that me and my wife will be listening to most likely. But it's something that I was surprised how little was given for the actual ultimate world building. That being said, there is a lot of I'm not sure if it would even be called world building as much as just characterization. There's just a lot of the way the people act around him, which I would say fits into the world building a little bit. And there's a lot of cults and all of them are against the idea of having a religion, which I think is really fun. And that's something I don't really want to spoil or go into how he describes it in the book, because I think that's a big part of the uniqueness of the world there. But I do think that is really funny and interesting and something that's worth looking into. So my third criteria is hook and draw. So a book needs to hook you, and it needs to be able to draw you back in even after you've been hooked and read for a little while. You have to, like, if you put it down, take care of kids, and you get busy for a day or two and you haven't read the book, you need to have the draw to come back to it. And that's kind of what I label as hook and draw. This book, I feel like, did not have an amazing hook. It was interesting. It was fun. The narrator did a much better job than reading it physically. I actually tried reading this one physically, or, on my phone beforehand. And I did not like it. I actually put it down and I did not come back to it because I didn't like the first two chapters. And it wasn't that I thought they were bad or anything like that. It was just that they didn't hook me personally, because it was a little bit heavy into fishing. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's not something that I necessarily relate with. But I feel like the draw of the book, once I got past a certain phase, was really well done. And one of the best I've actually seen. I feel like very similar to like Beware of Chicken, where like there's just this slice of life type of feel where once you get into that slice of life feel, it just gets better and better and better, and you just get so invested into the characters that you just want to keep coming back. And that's something that why I'm so excited for book 3 to be coming out soon. And that gets into my fourth criteria, which is characters. And the reason why I put this as criteria for whether or not I recommend a book is because of when I was in high school, I read Twilight, the Twilight series. And I feel like Twilight had a really good hook and draw. It kept bringing me back to it. The world building and everything was an amazing concept, was kind of fun. But the characters was the reason why I ended up firing the books. It was the reason that I ended not liking it, and actually it created a lot of chaos in my own life by telling everyone that Bella was a terrible character, and a lot of people didn't like me after that. But that's okay, because it was the truth. And I feel like that's something that for me really matters, is I need to have characters that I actually like to be able to feel like I want to read a book. This has some of the best characters, I feel like, of all time. The best characters and characterization, even the characters you don't necessarily like, are given the you're able to read from their perspective first off. So this has multiple perspectives, even if it is, I believe it's first character, a first person from the main character's perspective, and then it goes to third character from other people's perspectives. And I feel like that's done really well. It gives a lot of perspective to different interactions. It kind of helps with a slice of life feel, to feel like you are getting the drama, even though the main character is a little bit more laid back than a lot of the other characters around him. There's also a lot of really unique characters with this, and it's similar to Beware of Chicken. That's all I'll say. For those that know Beware of Chicken, like, know that it's going to have similar type of aspects as that. I don't think that's too many spoilers with that. Yeah, and they're just very unique characters. I feel like it's done very well, and there's some that you don't necessarily like. I feel like it takes a very good author to write characters that you don't like that fit into a scene very well. And I feel like Haylock Johnston does that very, very well with this book. So with all of those things, that is why I recommend the book. I definitely think this is one that you should check out. It should go, on the to lead list, if not even higher up on there, than the top 5, I would say. But I do want to also add one last criteria that I always include, which is my hangups for the book. And this is all personal opinion stuff. This is all just like, these are some of the things that if this rates really low, I probably wouldn't recommend the book, but I can recognize that it's outside of concept, world building, hook and draw, and characters. And this is just my own personal issues that I have for why I might fire a book versus keep it. So my first hang up, and I said this kind of before, is that there is a lot of fishing in this book. It is not the main focus. There is way more slice of life around everything, but I feel like if I was reading this physically, I would have had a really hard time through the fishing scenes, simply because I'm not a big fan of fishing myself. And I kind of related with the main character a bit there, where he, grew up having a father because of him being a billionaire, golden child, whatever, but he never was taught how to fish. And so he was kind of going on the journey of teaching himself. I actually had a very similar experience where I, was never taught how to fish. But I feel like I tried it and I was not a big fan of it, and so I just didn't relate with the character that way. And the main character does treat fishing kind of like as like the whole reason for living in existence at times, that I thought was fun and interesting, and and like I still enjoyed it, but I feel like if I was reading it physically I would have been more bothered than listening to it. And I think that's the kind of the next point I had, was that I think this is one where you almost have to read it from the with a narrator on the audio version versus physical. And this is totally my preference, but Heath Miller is one of the best narrators of all time. He's the same guy that narrates He Who Fights with Monsters, and the main character is Australian, and so having that Australian accent through it is just it helps it a ton. Just to kind of like, oh no, just give the feel of the book. It gives the vibes, and it's really well done. So that's not so much a hang up as I recommend specifically the audiobook, but I'm sure other people would absolutely love it. You know, not having read that, there's tons that have loved it without that, but I absolutely recommend the audiobook version. And along those lines, I did want to say, like, my final hang up was not so much that I just recommend the narrator, but also I felt like the narrator carried a lot of weight. The voice of this book, I feel like if I didn't have the narrator's perspective on how that voice sounded at different times, I don't know if I would have caught as much of the book. So that's what the one hang up I will say. Like, I'm not like, that could be an issue for the book itself as far as quality and stuff. But I think that is erased by all of the other good things about it. The draw, the characters, that the hints of world building that we end up getting, and also just like the cult type system that is there, and the different characters are fun. I feel like the world building really didn't have a ton, but the characterization was included within that, which was done very well. And so that's basically my review for Heretical Fishing. It's a very good book. I hope you guys give it a check out. Let me know if you guys have already read it, if you like it. Give me other recommendations down below. I'm reading a couple that are, actually some fans sent one in, and so I've been reading those. They're massive, and so I'm going to be trying to produce more videos as I'm going on. And I've hit 52 books finished for the year so far, and this is September. And so I'm hoping to get around 80 for the year, which would be pretty cool, as well as 37 that I like read 50 to 250 pages or so and fired them after the fact. And so I'm around 80 already. But anyway, so that's the goal. I was shooting for 100, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to hit that for the year. Anyway, so I'll let you guys know the books I've read and the ones I recommend, and like, subscribe so you guys can see more of what those are. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much, and bye-bye.